Hey, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, your pet's ally, and I am going to talk to you a little bit today about medicinal mushrooms, which we've been seeing so much about kind of everywhere. And so I've seen how powerful turkey tail can be in the face of cancer and specific hemangiosarcomas, lymphoma, not as much, but osteosarcs and other solid tumors. It seems to be have really profound effects. And so I keep seeing more and more research about the benefits of mushrooms, and we've been using those in our patients from time to time. So I decided to do more of a deep dive for myself, and also find out, okay, what's the best way to offer these as a supplement, as essentially a food product, and what's going to work best as far as the types of mushrooms, the synergy that might happen between different mushrooms, things of that nature. So with that in mind, I want to kind of launch into what I found so that hopefully this will help you as well. So as we're searching for ways to treat chronic disease, especially cancer, we look for ways that are going to help the host, the pet, the person's immune system fight off the cancer more naturally, so that we're not relying on so many toxic drugs and things of that nature to help kill the cancer, but also damage the host cells. In addition, if we can find plants that will help support repairing the damage from these drugs, so using them in conjunction with chemotherapeutic medications, all the more better. So we've seen, as I said, tons and tons of different options of products out there, many of them around turkey tail in specific. So let's kind of figure out how that works. So there are tons that have been researched extensively and used in folk medicine, but from that perspective, they just knew they worked. They didn't know the specific mechanisms of action. So it turns out the main ingredient is something called a beta glucan, and these are naturally occurring polysaccharides. And you will have to pardon me because the big words are just going to start coming out, but I'll do my best to explain what that means and break that down a bit. So polysaccharides literally mean multiple sugars, and they are the most abundant carbohydrate source found in food. And literally they are just long chains of monosaccharides, or single sugars, hooked together by various types of links. And then these links can be broken down by both enzymes and sometimes water, such as we see in the case of starches. So for instance, the potato starch is broken down by adding water and the digestive enzyme amylase. It breaks that link and puts it into pieces that the body can utilize as a food or a fuel source. So this is pretty interesting. It's not quite what happens with beta glucans, though. So this is kind of the interesting part about them. You can find them in a lot of different types of food, including oats, barley, yeast, and of course, mushrooms. And they are soluble fibers, so they help to control blood sugar by blunting the amount that can be absorbed, because there's all this fiber around the sugar molecule, preventing you from getting a big blast of sugar into your system. So these are a food concept, but in the case of using beta glucans in medicine, you might think of things like red yeast rice, which is sort of a natural approach to reducing cholesterol, but the drug Lipitor and all the other anti-cholesterol medications or statins are derived from this yeast, but they singled out the one particular thing that helps to reduce blood cholesterol, which is the beta glucan. So that's one benefit, but like much of medicine, if we take a thing out of its natural substrate, then we lose the benefit of other substances that are in that plant, in that yeast, in that food substance. So the other thing that's super interesting is that research is showing that beta glucans can have a host of benefits, like reducing cholesterol, like helping to control blood sugar, but also things like antioxidant, free radical scavenging, and antimicrobial properties. And most recently, they've been found to be the active part to activate the complement system, which is kind of the general surveillance part of the immune system, if you will. So there's kind of two parts to the immune system: the complement, which is sort of, we're on the lookout for all the bad stuff in the world, and then the part of the immune system that creates antibodies to specific things. For instance, when you take a vaccination, it's to create antibodies to that specific thing that you are vaccinating to protect that pet or person against. That's why when people get COVID, they produce antibodies to the virus, and hopefully it's enough to help them clear the virus without getting terribly sick. So the other thing that's interesting about all of this is that in the general immune system, going back to that idea, they can help enhance the function of NK, or natural killer cells, T cells, and macrophages. And these are truly the workhorses of the general immune system. They interact with receptors, the beta glucans, that is, interacts with receptors on these cells to actually stimulate their function. And so we've seen that they can increase nitrous oxide production in macrophages. We've seen that when they hit those receptors on the cells, they make them more reactive, more able to clean things up. And also they can end up having, the beta glucans can have a protective effect on healthy cells by preventing damage from free radicals, and then preventing damage from possible carcinogens that are floating around the system. So that's all great, but why mushrooms instead of just giant bowls of Cheerios all the time, since oats are high in beta glucans as well? Well, it turns out that there are something called alpha glucans. If there's beta, there's got to be alpha, right? And these don't offer any medicinal benefits. These are more of a food starch. And so that helps to, that's part of how oats will help drop your cholesterol and blood sugar, for that matter, because they act as a soluble fiber. So it turns out in mushrooms, they offer the highest amounts of beta glucans, and how the mushrooms are grown can impact greatly how much of the beta glucans are present in the fungus when you either buy it at a market or take it in a capsule. So strangely enough, when grown on sorghum instead of things like sawdust and other sort of inexpensive mushroom growing medium, 95% of the glucans in the mushrooms are beta glucans, the medicinal components that we're looking for. And in particular, there is a 1,3-1,6 branch type of beta glucan that's been shown to be most effective in inducing nitrous oxide production in macrophages. And the reason this is good is that the nitrous oxide is the stuff that gets in there and kills or destroys either bacteria, viruses, or certain types of chemicals that can create problems in the body. And the cell receptors are designed to actually receive this specific molecule to stimulate immune activity throughout the complement system, and on neutrophils, the monocytes, and natural killer cells, as I mentioned. It also stimulates phagocytosis, which is literally the immune cells eating or phagocytizing. So literally, they, like a giant Pac-Man, eat the bad stuff. It also helps them to release chemicals like nitrous oxide and others that will help to destroy what's left. And in doing so, and surveil kind of for the leftover bad guys, in doing so, it will help bring in more cells to an area that has a problem to help continue with the cleanup operations. So the other thing that's really amazing is that recent animal studies have shown that beta glucans can reduce tumor regression by up to 20% and reduce metastasis, especially those in turkey tail. Again, one of the best researched mushrooms in medicine at this point. So what are the other ones that are out there, and why are they used, and what are the most common ones? So reishi, I think that almost everybody can bring that one to top of mind. The Latin name is Ganoderma. Several species are generally used, but they all have these same immune supportive properties, and they also help to support normal blood glucose metabolism and liver health. It's been used in Asia for centuries, so it was studied extensively both in traditional Chinese medicines or traditional Asian medicines. And in that context, it was called lingzi. It's been cultivated often because it's very difficult to find large enough quantities in the wild. So one of the things it's known for doing is that it kills cancer cells through various mechanisms, including shutting off the ability to increase blood supply, directly attacking the cells, and things of that nature. It's also immunomodulatory, and that's a really key word. So if we think about it this way, in autoimmune disease, the immune system is over responding. In cancer, it's often under responding. And so an immunomodulator helps bring that back up to where the immune system is responding in a normal way so that it can help keep the person or the pet healthy. So it also has antibacterial properties, antioxidant properties, and antiviral properties, again, helping to modulate blood sugar and supporting liver and GI repair. Another one that you're probably starting to hear about really frequently is lion's mane, or Hericium. And these guys are really interesting because they also help, amongst the other normal things that we're thinking about for mushrooms, these guys also help to improve cognitive impairment and support healthy brain function and memory. And they may also help support a normal stress response. They've been shown to help aid with treating depression in people, but it's really interesting. So this is one that's being singled out, and you might have seen this in some of the functional mushroom blends like 4-sigmatic, and it gets, for a lot of the biohackers, they will add it to their coffee as well to get a cognitive function boost. One of the other ones that is very well known is cordyceps mushroom. And this one I used to use quite a bit for patients with lymphoma because it seems like it helped to reduce fatigue and support healthy immune function. And for men and women, it seems to promote sexual health. So that's always a boost. But it really did seem to benefit lymphoma patients more than the turkey tail. So again, I was sort of using them singularly. The next on the list, which is also well known as maitake or Graphola frondosa. These guys can support immune activity, especially when combined with shiitake and reishi mushrooms. So there's definitely quite a bit of synergy between those three types of mushrooms. In humans, it's very interesting. It's been used to promote ovulation in people with polycystic ovary syndrome when women have failed what's considered to be the first line of treatment there. It is, again, synergistic immunomodulating activity, has been shown to help improve the function of human macrophages when combining those three mushrooms, the maitake, the shiitake, and reishis. Next on the list is shiitake mushrooms, or Lentinula edodes. Also, these guys are well researched. Often you can find these in reishi mushrooms fresh in many of the health food stores. And I think Whole Foods was carrying them for a while as well. But again, we're looking at the immunomodulating properties of this mushroom and activity against certain types of cancer cells. Several studies have shown that there are antioxidant properties with this mushroom as well, and that it can possess both antiviral and antibacterial abilities as well. Again, we're offering some help with supporting healthy blood sugar levels and lipid metabolism. Notice I did not say lowering cholesterol, because that's not all of what lipid metabolism is about. But so this is for breeds that have trouble with lipid metabolism, like Scotties. This might be something to add in on a regular basis. The other thing that it can help do is to keep blood pressure stable in people and animals that already have normal blood pressure, but due to either aging in the case of humans, or comorbid diseases like kidney disease or heart disease that might change how blood pressure is affected and may go up. This may prevent that gradual decline or gradual increase, I should say. So that's another use that we don't think of, interestingly. The next one on the list is Agaricus, or Agaricus blasei. And this one also has immunomodulating ability and can support the innate immune system very well. It may also help reduce the side effects of anti-cancer drugs, and may help support the treatment of type 2 diabetes. So this is really interesting. This one is specifically protective against medications that may be given to patients to treat a particular type of disease. So anti-cancer drugs are one thing, but I'm also guessing that some of the medications that we use to control allergies that are actually anti-cancer drugs, like cyclosporine, prednisone, budesonide, things of that nature, this may help reduce some of those side effects from those medications. And then lastly is turkey tail, which truly in veterinary medicine is the best researched mushroom out there. Its Latin name is Trametes versicolor, and there are over 400 in vitro and animal studies, none in the humans so far. So it seems to have a broad spectrum of immunological and immunomodulating properties, and it probably helps to support the immune system during radiation and chemotherapy, again, protecting the healthy cells. There's been some studies that showed that the cancer cells do not have receptors for that specific beta-glucan molecule that we discussed earlier. But it also helps to show strong antioxidant capability, helping to repair some of the damaged tissue that occurs during the process of chemotherapy or radiation. And that's part of how many of the older types of chemotherapeutic drugs work, is to create oxidation damage in various ways to various parts of the cell. The two compounds that are believed to be responsible for these effects and actions are polysaccharopeptides and the specific polysaccharide crestin, which is also called PSK. So if you have been following natural foods and natural treatments for quite some time, you are probably familiar with a product called Immunity. And this was released, oh golly, probably close to 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And its claim to fame, they did a ton of research, especially around hemangiosarcoma, and they've done more since then. But its claim to fame is that they have extracted a standardized polysaccharopeptide, PSP, and put that into this capsule at 400 milligrams. So that's pretty interesting. So if I don't think any other manufacturer of these types of products has done this type of thing. So again, it does have great benefits. And I have a dear oncology friend that used to use this with all of her patients that had hemangiosarcoma. Here's my concern with it. And here's the reason I didn't end up using it in practice, because it is just this extract from the plant. And again, part of what we don't know is how much the rest of the plant does to support the body. So, there's a lot of studies where you try to take a single thing that we think is the active ingredient out of the product, and it doesn't work as well as the actual plant did or the actual food did. So this is kind of where it gets confusing. So all of this to say, and this is really just scratching the surface, but I wanted to get you some information about medicinal mushrooms so that you could start to understand their uses. All of the science on these are really, really molecular, because that's where our level of understanding is now about how things work in the body. And we can identify specific parts and pieces that are doing the heavy lifting. But again, we don't understand kind of what the rest of the plant is doing. So like CBD or full spectrum hemp product extracts, there really is an entourage effect. And when you take just the CBD out of that, then you really don't get the benefits that you might see from a full spectrum extract. So same idea with the mushrooms. So I've been looking around at like what's working well, what's going to work, how is it produced, what's going to give the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. And we finally were able to work out a relationship with their manufacturer to produce a supplement, which I'm really, really stoked about, and hopefully you guys will find useful too. One thing I should say is who shouldn't take any type of mushroom supplement. And sadly, me, if you're sensitive to mold and fungus, these are going to create an allergic reaction. And at that point, the benefit is not worth the symptoms that you will experience or that your pet will experience. Additionally, shiitake mushrooms dogs can have a fairly strong allergic reaction to it. So if your dog is responds to histamine quite strongly, so whether that's from eating food, environmental allergies, things of that nature, or your cat for that matter, what I would suggest doing is getting a little bit of shiitake mushroom before you invest in a bottle of capsules that may potentially create more problems than they solve, and test it. And how you would do that is to just get enough mushrooms for 2 or 3 1 or 2 teaspoons, literally. So it may be a half a mushroom you'd need, and cook it. You can boil it, you can saute it, things of that nature. If you boil it, you do want to give it with the water, which gets a little confusing. So probably gently sauteing is a better option. And for pets up to 25 pounds, offer a half a teaspoon in a meal mixed with the food for 3 meals. And for pets up to 50 pounds and above, 25 pounds and above, then offer a teaspoon for 3 meals, and wait for 72 hours, because remember, it can take up to 72 hours before you see a reaction to it. So that's going to be really, really important. So that's what I've got for you today. Let me know what questions you have about that in the Facebook group, and we'll go from there. Thanks.